If you're like me and you care about public lands in the US, then stop scrolling for a second because you need to hear this. Right now, the Trump administration is attempting to open up 44 million acres of protected national forest to logging, mining, and other developments. And the deadline to speak up is September 19th. These areas are currently protected under something called the Roadless Rule. And if you've never heard of it, don't worry. 5 years ago, when this rule first came under attack, I didn't know much about it either. So back then in 2020, I made a short explainer film to break down this critical piece of policy and share that with people like you. Let's watch that together real quick because a lot of it still applies today. And then make sure to stick around until the end because I'll explain what's going on this time and not for the better. For those of us who live in Alaska, the concept of backyard is bigger than other places. Sometimes it looks like this, or maybe even this. Whatever your backyard looks like, it's where we go to hunt, fish, and recreate. Now, if you've been following the news lately, the term roadless has been a hot topic. Fundamentally, the roadless debate is about what Alaskans want their backyard to look like. But to fully explain, we need to go back in time a bit. In 2001, the Roadless Rule was passed to protect nearly 60 million acres of national forest from road building and industrial clear-cut logging. Now, Americans from across the country had deep connections to forest lands and pushed for these protections. But this was especially true in the Tongass National Forest of Southeast Alaska, where communities are completely surrounded by public land. You see, for nearly 50 years, industrial clear-cut logging dominated the region. But when the industry collapsed, Alaskans were left with damaged salmon streams and destroyed landscapes. So in 2001, the Roadless Rule was a chance for them to decide a new vision for their backyard. And the vast majority wanted to move forward with protections for their thriving salmon fishery, growing tourism industry, and way of life. But not everyone was happy. Industrial logging interests have long hoped to gain access to the ancient old-growth trees living deep in the Tongass, some dating over 800 years old. But it would take removing the Roadless Rule to finally get their cut. Which brings us back to today. After Governor Dunleavy and President Trump met on Air Force One, the Forest Service released a surprising proposal that would strip over 9 million acres of roadless protections from Alaska's national forest. Supporters of this move claim this has nothing to do with logging, and the Roadless Rule hinders community access, critical utilities, and renewable energy projects. But the Roadless Rule already allows for projects like these. In fact, since the Roadless Rule was placed in the Tongass, all 57 requests for projects, ranging from hydroelectric developments to community infrastructure needs, have been granted by the Forest Service. What the Roadless Rule does prevent is industrial clear-cut logging. This is why the people of Southeast Alaska, tribes in the region, businesses, and visitors have almost unanimously supported roadless protections in the Tongass. They want a stunning backyard that provides billions of dollars to the economy, sustainable jobs, and hunting and fishing opportunities for generations to come. So this is what roadless is all about. Today, industrial logging interests are pushing to remove a decades-old protection, despite continued overwhelming local support. The people of the region have spoken, but it will take voices from across Alaska and beyond to save the Roadless Rule. So what's happened since 2020? Well, first of all, the Trump administration did end up removing the Roadless Rule from all 9.3 million acres of the Tongass, despite 96% of public comments being in favor of keeping them in place. Then, 3 years later, in 2023, President Biden reinstated the rule. And now, 2 years later, the Trump administration is back fighting to get rid of roadless. But this time, they don't just want to remove protections in Alaska, but roadless areas across the entire country. That's 36 states and 44.7 million acres. They're pitching this as a fix to wildfire management, low-income housing, and jobs. But the reality is this is just another attempt to strip away federal protections and deregulate and sell off some of our last wild places. We have until September 19th to comment on this decision, so I encourage you to read more about the Roadless Rule and use the link below in my bio to share thoughts and comments before the public comment period is closed.